And let's talk about The Price is Wrong, bitch. Remember that from what was it, Happy Gilmore? Okay, so yesterday, well, last week they did the one on America's Next Top Model, which shout out to y'all. Who was it? Robert, who sent me both episodes. So I was able because I don't have E apparently. Well, so what E was a part of Peacock because there have been stuff that has been on there. But I was able to watch it because apparently it was on YouTube and somebody screen recorded and posted it up on the YouTube. So I managed to see both parts. I may need y'all to do that for me with the Price is Right because I haven't been able to see that one. But so yeah, the episode aired yesterday. Episodes because it was two of them, and the biggest bombshells of what had transpired from the situation has come out. Shout out to People Magazine, people.com, they're the ones that spilled the tea regarding this situation. So I was like, where is it? Okay, so let's get into the topic. So the Price is Right has long been beloved as one of America's favorite game shows. During one era of the game show's long-running history, however, there were darker things going on behind the scenes. In the third installment of E's docuseries, Dirt and Rotten Scandals, former members of the talent and production team details the environment behind the scenes and the shift that happened from the mid-'70s to the early 2000s when Bob Barker was at the helm. Now, former Barker Beauties, Hallestrom. I remember Holly. Holly was like a big member over there. I remember Holly, and there was another girl that Bob was fucking. Well, having an affair with, I should say. I remember her too, but we'll get into that. So Holly Hallstrom, Kathleen Bradley, and Claudia Jordan appear in the two-part episode of the docuseries, as well as producer Barbara Hunter, detailing a toxic work environment that became unbearable. Now, here's the biggest bombshells that we learned from the episode. So Kathleen Bradley and Claudia Jordan said that they experienced racism on set. Now, Kathleen Bradley was the first permanent Black model to work on The Price is Right, joining the show in 1990, but she knew from early on that there were mixed feelings about her joining the show. She said, as time went on, at some point, it got back to me that some of the fans were writing negative things about me being on the show as a Black model, she shared in the doc. She said it was just not a good feeling. And one of the members of the production team brought to my attention that inside a production meeting, when models weren't in there, they would use the N word. A decade later, Claudia Jordan joined the show and had her own experiences with racism, sharing in the documentary, saying other comments that producer Phil Wayne would make carried on that old spirit of racism, such as, let's make a reverse Oreo. Claudia, you get in the middle of the two white models, or tell me I'm the ass model because stereotypically Black women have a larger behind. And I guess that's what he wanted to grab, why he wanted to grab and feel it. Jordan says the racism extended to vetting the studio audience, revealing a darker side to the show. She claims to have learned they would go through potential audience members in the line looking for contestants. It was stereotypes that were definitely pushed on the show. Negative stereotypes of Black people like the overweight Black woman or the extra loud, ridiculous person. And then I started to hear that they were only allowed to have two Black contestants on the show at a time. And that was a direct order from Bob Barker to let Bob Barker know the race of the contestant was about to come on down. Jordan continued, they would have a letter B written on the card, and it was pretty sad. A Black contestant may try to hug Barker, and he would shrink away from them. Now, there was a girl on the show named Diane Parkinson who was pretty much having an affair with Bob on the show. And pretty much it was an open secret. So a lot of people knew that Bob was out here hunching one of the girls on the show, and they pretty much kept it to themselves. So Diane Parkinson and Bob Barker had an affair that started as a secret but became well known by everyone at The Price is Right, the doc claims. Holly Hallstrom explained, Janice Pennington, I remember Janice too, and I first realized long before the rest of the show knew that Diane and Bob were having sex. Diane confided in me, Kathleen Bradley recalled. I was kind of surprised because Bob also had a girlfriend. He didn't give a fuck. Bob was an asshole. And the funny thing was, I remember hearing stories about Bob Barker being a dick, and I'm just glad that all of this is coming out now. Is that man dead? Or is he alive still, clinging on to what little life he has left? Because I think that man got to be 118 years old. So They said blah, blah, blah. Bob also had a girlfriend. As time went on, people were noticing, the audience and the viewers at home. Damn, how they make it that obvious from how close Bob and Diane were hugging and looking at each other, playing around and all of that. So it didn't really stay private very long. She would go downstairs during the breaks and go into his dressing room, and then some hanky panky was going on. It changed the dynamic on set because, as Hallstrom noted, everyone was basically kissing her behind because she may potentially be the new Miss Barker. Well, she was probably snuggling up to him because she was looking for a payout. She wanted to become the new Mrs. Barker. She wanted to have control and power over what was going on The Price is Right. Because when you're in competition with these other girls who probably was just there to do their job and wasn't really thinking about Bob in that way, Miss Thing was feeling her oats. And she thought about hunching the host that was going to get her places. They said the next thing you know, I get a call from Bob's girlfriend, and everyone knew Bob was cheating on her with Diane. And she says, "I know Bob is sleeping with Diane." The two talked about Diane and how she dates celebrities, and Hallstrom shared some names, including several black men, which became a point of contention between. Oh, so she was a whore running around just flinging her pussy around like she was Sharon Stone. And uh no shade, but you're no Sharon Stone. I was trying to figure out the way that Stu said it in Scream, but that's what it's giving. So let's face it, you are no Sharon Stone. Now she said, "Oh my gosh, Bob has no idea that he's had sex with a woman who has had sex with." Oh, now that would really flip his lid if he found out that she was out here giving her pussy to a bunch of black peen. And he probably in competition because you already know the stereotypes they be said about black men and their penis. If he hear that, oh, that's gonna send him, he gonna blow a gasket. I actually hope that somebody ended up telling him that old girl been out here hunching black men to really piss him off. Cause I'm sure that would send him to the point that he probably would have fired her ass. But anyway, let's continue on with the story. So they said Bob had no idea that he had sex with a woman who had sex with black men. Bob has always said that black men are the most diseased people on earth, noting that racism in the situation didn't surprise her because of Barker's status as a white man of a certain age. The revelation led to blow up argument between Barker and Parkinson on set. The whole set was dead silent listening, and Diane comes out of Bob's dressing room and goes up the stairs, and Bob's assistant goes running after her saying, "Diane, you got to apologize to Bob." And Diane refused, citing their sexual relationship. Child, messy. Now, the documentary also went on to, they said that the participants have not heard from Diane since her lawsuit. So, girl, you was up in here laying low and spreading it wide, thinking that you was gonna get something out of the situation, and this bitch had the unmitigated gall to file a lawsuit. So this is why we can't take a lot of you harassment victims seriously, because some of y'all be equal participants with the shit, and then when things don't go y'all way and y'all be in y'all feelings, then y'all want to come out here and file lawsuits. So after the blow up argument with Barker, Diane was approached by Playboy to pose. Because they weren't together, she agreed to the shoot, which did not go well with Barker. This is according to Bradley. Now, pretty much that was the end of Diane Parkinson being on The Price is Right, she noted, adding that Diane was not happy. She was very bitter. She wanted to get back at him. He was sexually harassing me and forcing me to do things with him in the dressing room where I didn't want to do it. And I'm going to get my attorney. I'm going to file a sexual harassment lawsuit against him. That's why I said, girl, you was with the shits. You was up in here fucking every Tom, Dick, and every, or should I say, every Russell, every Hakeem, and every Laquan under the sun on top of a Bob. And then when the white man that you was hoping to get over on found out some stuff and you wasn't getting your way, now you want to file a sexual girl, go fall on a spikiest dildo you can come across. I was trying to come up with something. Now she said she was gonna file a lawsuit. Girl, get off my line with the bullshit. But then from then on, Bradley claimed everything changed. Though she fought back against Barker for a while, Parkinson later dropped the lawsuit because it was bullshit. That's why. Now, Hallstrom noted the last day anyone on and that's not excusing Bob Barker's assholish baby. He's a dick, whatever, and he's pretty much what did we say, ostracized or pretty much a joke. Like nobody takes that man seriously. Your claim to fame was The Price is Right, and now you're kind of like seen as the laughing stock of Hollywood. So From then on, Bradley claimed everything changed, though she fought back against Barker for a while. Parkinson later dropped the lawsuit. Hallstrom noted the last day anyone on that set saw Diane was the last day she shot The Price is Right. After that, I have never talked to Diane again. And that's Dian. That's how they spell that. She don't even have an E at the end. That's how irrelevant she is. And then also Bradley agreed, adding, I have no idea where she is, nor do we give a fuck. Now, he noted that the written message displayed on the docuseries saying multiple attempts were made to contact Diane Parkinson for comment, but her whereabouts remain a mystery. Yeah, she ain't talking because she know how she look, a mess. Now, let's get into Holly Hallstrom basically resorting to have to live in her car after turning down a settlement contingent on an non-disclosure agreement. So Hallstrom recalled that time on set saying every time you went to the studio, you had to sit with lawyers who only wanted to hear all the bad stuff, about Diane and how Bob could not have possibly harassed Diane. She said, I wanted nothing to do with it. I was the only one that was asked to give a deposition and did not. I didn't want to commit felony perjury, which is exactly what it would have been if I gave testimony. Now, Hallstrom has warned shortly after by Barker and a producer that her weight was becoming an issue and asked to address it. In the meantime, her camera time was limited, saying they couldn't use the she refused to lie for me excuse to get rid of me. So they said it was because of my weight. That's when I knew I was being set up. And I'm looking at pictures of her. Holly is not fat. Y'all tried it. And also, yeah, so Diane was out here lying and trying to get a situation with the thing, but then also, Bob, you ain't no angel either because you shouldn't have been fucking your coworkers, or because you were the boss, you were the host, and you pretty much had a lot of say so on The Price is Right because you were the king daddy at the time, and you're using your position of power to get it in with these women. And not only that, but you were sexually harassing other women too. So Hallstrom was warned shortly that by Barker and a producer that her weight was becoming an issue. And they also said that she ultimately lost weight, but was told it wasn't enough and was informed she'd be taking an early retirement. When I didn't agree, that's when the whole thing blew up. And then lawyers called me and started negotiating the terms of retirement. And I said, but I don't want to retire. There's no need for me to retire. But then, but there really was no choice. Barker wanted me gone. I was being fired and wouldn't be coming back. After nearly 20 years on the show, I was devastated. Now, after a press release about her departure was shared with the media, which included that Hallstrom said was inaccurate information, she decided to speak out, sharing her story with hard copy. Oh my God, remember hard copy back in the day? That was my shit. Anyway, that and what was it? Inside Edition. That was another show I used to love back in the day. Oh, then they said, next thing you know, my lawyer called and said, Bob Barker just filed a lawsuit against you for defamation. And after that, no one spoke to me. No one returned my calls. They were gone. It was all gone. And now I am so alone. God so alone and going through the court process by myself. It was the worst thing in my whole life because with Barker, it was like fighting a giant machine. It was overwhelming and it stayed that way for a couple of years. And it wasn't until 2000, 5 years after the lawsuit was filed, that Barker dropped the legal action just days before trial was slated to begin. She, in turn, sued Barker for malicious prosecution. I would do the same thing because he literally was out here trying to psychologically fuck with you. And then days before you was about to go to trial, he pulls that stunt. Oh, I definitely would have sued his ass. Then they said they did offer me a settlement that would include an NDA, meaning that I could not speak publicly about the show. But I knew that I was not going to sign an NDA because he's a liar. He is a shameless, self-promoting liar. I was fired. I had the truth on my side. There was no justice in you can win because you have more money. Over the years, I sold my house, savings account, portfolio. All of it was spent just trying to stay in this lawsuit. I just didn't want him to win. Now, Hallstrom continued saying, I lost everything. I was totally broke and living out of my car. I would just stay with friends and family because at the moment I couldn't afford to stay in this lawsuit and I would have to settle, and I was not going to do that. And you know what? Regardless of the fact that you lost everything, and I hate that for you, I'm so glad you stuck it out and wanted to stick it to this man because Bob Barker, he's a fucking asshole, and I'm glad you get everything that's coming to you. Now, Parkinson and Hallstrom weren't the only women from The Price is Right to take legal action. Kathleen Bradley and Janice. Oh, I remember Janice. Janice Pennington also sought legal action against. Yeah, I was a Price is Right fan back in the day, so I know all the girls and things. And I used to love that show, Plinko, Showcase, Show. I used to love all that stuff on there. Both women were fired in October of 2000, along nearly a dozen long-standing employees of the show. Say I was numb. I couldn't even think. I called Janice and she said, "You know that bastard fired me as well." Janice, who she was there 29 years. I was there 18 years. It was so hurtful to let go so abruptly, without cause, without a goodbye. That was the most cowardly thing Mr. Bob Barker, I think, had ever done in his life. Bradley later revealed, eventually the truth came out. Why all six of us were fired, we all refused to lie to save Barker's ass. Now, later, the women fought back against the injustice. Janice and I put in a lawsuit for wrongful termination. They did give us a nice little settlement, Bradley said. Now, if you haven't gotten around to it, definitely check this out because the juice on this was juicy. And like I said before, unfortunately, I didn't get to see it because like I don't have E or whatever. But I'm gonna have to do like I did when I saw the top model one last week. I'm just gonna have to go on to YouTube and look and see if they uploaded the episodes and watch it that way. But fan out y'all and send it to me in my inbox like y'all did last week, Robert. It's a hint. Friend of the show, send it to me if you can. But yeah, did you see the episode? What did you think of the episode? And were you also a fan of The Price is Right? Who knew? I mean, I remember hearing things about Bob Barker being an ass, but I didn't know it was this damn bad. But yeah, I definitely want to hear from y'all. So regarding this story, y'all know what to do. Hit me up with those thoughts in the comments down below.